Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the Republican National Committee. Michael Steele, he's giving indications he wants another 2-year term. There are others who are now emerging saying that he shouldn't get the job, others should get the job. And now we've learned that there's this scoring system they're setting up to determine whether or not these potential candidates really are with the Tea Party, really adhering to the principles of the Republican National Committee. Is this a good idea? Let me start with you, Leslie.
Sure. You know, the problem with a lot of these lists is the lists tend to get longer and longer. I think ultimately we have a lot of really strong candidates, and it's everybody, you know, is important people are wanting to throw their hat in and lead this party. But the real question is, can they raise money? Can they recruit good candidates? And are they good spokespeople for the values of the Republican platform? I think ultimately it comes down to that. And adding beyond that is up for discussion.
There's our 13 points on the so-called leadership criteria list, Roland. Is this, in your opinion, the way that these potential candidates should be judged, the challengers to Michael Steele if he runs?
I believe it is, because look, when you have anywhere from 5, 10, 15, 20 people, you need to be able to establish a criteria. You need to be able to say, frankly, who is, for a committee 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because remember, when Steele was elected, there were several ballots that got to that particular point. You don't want a long, drawn-out process when it comes to voting. And so, look, you should be able to weed some people out whose name is being thrown out there, who frankly can't fit the bill. And so these kinds of things are used in corporate America every single day. They're using HR departments. And so I see no reason why the RNC should not use a particular criteria to determine possible candidates.
Leslie, they are obviously being influenced by the Tea Party movement and its success, because one of the notions in these 13 points is whether or not these candidates will actively graft into the party, the Tea Party activist branches, and make up the freedom movement, who make up the freedom movement in this country.
You know, you're right, Wolf. When you look at the list, it doesn't give a competitive advantage to an outsider. For example, a lot of the state party chairmen or the national chairmen tend to come from inside the infrastructure. They were state party leaders on most parts. I talked to former chairman, my old boss, Jim Nicholson, about that, and he said it was really tough to get somebody outside the system to come in because they had to know all the Republican committee members. They had to build time and kind of a legacy. People had to know what they stood for. That's the difference there.